Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and if you love hearing about how technology is making the world a better place, then holy cow, you are going to love today's episode because we've got a brilliant entrepreneur that is innovating in very cool ways to make all of our lives better and, of course, healthier. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Deniz Binay. Deniz is a former Googler. He's actually been twice at Google. He's a very accomplished product manager, and he is very actively involved in the launch of Gemini, specifically the Gemini mobile app. And in Google DeepMind, he also worked on how to personalize the model based on millions of data points from users. He led the health team at Google. He's been part of the founding team of Google Assistant. So he is one of the rare people to launch two iconic generations of digital assistants. He's originally from Switzerland, and you're going to hear all about how he's the co-founder and CEO of a very cool solution today. He's creating a new AI health companion that doesn't focus just on insights, but that helps you actually take actions for your health across nutrition, movement, rest, and so much more. We are all going to learn so much from his attitude, his experiences, his skill set, and of course, the way that he's building this solution to make other people's lives better. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Deniz Binay. All right, Denise, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, and pleasure to be here.
Yes, likewise, enchanté. I'm so excited to dive into the good stuff with you today, but you've got to take us beyond the bio. Who's Denise? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, well, who's Denise? Originally I am from Switzerland, so you probably hear my French accent. I'm from Gruyère, like a town where we make the famous cheese called Gruyère. That's a place as well. So that's where I'm from. I'm very a multicultural person. I've been living in Switzerland. I've been living in China, in Beijing. I've been living in Pittsburgh, in San Francisco, and right now I'm actually based in New York. All of my life, I've been very excited about technology. I would say about what it can bring to people, what we can do with it. So I would say as a person, I'm a very enthusiastic person.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because that enthusiasm transfers perfectly into your entrepreneurial endeavors. So you've had an incredible career leading up to your entrepreneurial start, obviously being an ex-Googler. That puts you in really good stead in so many conversations and showcases just how accomplished you were in your professional career. But you've got to introduce us to your entrepreneurial beginnings as well, because I know that what you are working on now, it's not your first entrepreneurial endeavor. Obviously, we're going to talk about Lemon Health here today, but walk us through that time where you said, you know what, I want to build something. I want to be an entrepreneur.
Actually, this idea came to my mind, I think, about launching businesses, launching startups when I was very, very young. I was very inspired by my brother who was always doing some side business. So even when I was actually 16, with him, we bought a stock of what was it, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 pair of socks, and then we sold them online, which was super exciting, and then we would make website for friends, other local businesses. So we would make a bit of money like that. And then as we were actually young, I joined an entrepreneur who was launching the Netflix of Switzerland, but the previous generation of Netflix where people would order the movie and we would ship the physical disc to their home. So I would help on that business. And then we also launched with him a business that would sell robotic product in Switzerland and all of that. I was around 18 years old. I was super young, and that really gave me the first state of entrepreneurship. So I got really hooked on that. And for me, throughout my studies, I always had these ideas in the future, I'm going to launch my own startup. So even during my studies, with friends, we launched a marketplace. There was a kind of TaskRabbit for Switzerland, but even before I knew about TaskRabbit, so I didn't even know there was a thing. And I launched something similar in Switzerland, and we were features on one of the national newspapers. That was very cool, at a young age to be on a national newspaper, have a photo there. So yeah, very, very excited about launching new things. That's when I got the first taste of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I love that. And especially because obviously you've tasted entrepreneurship even before the rest of us got a taste of AI at the mass adoption that we obviously have today. And you were a core part of that Google team that obviously has innovated in so many different ways, whether it's Google Assistant, whether we're talking about Gemini and on the mobile app side of things. Talk to us from that vantage point. Obviously, technology is one of your superpowers and you use it to bring cool solutions to the world that actually impact our lives. From your perspective, where are we these days in how AI is reshaping not just work but also life?
Yeah, I mean it's true. Like the AI wave is, I think it's very interesting. Like it's a big technological shift that has a lot of opportunities, and it's touching a bit like everything you can think of, can be impacted with AI, or most of the things can be impacted with AI. I think I like to think about like AI. I mean, AI is a very broad subject, but there's like this assistant concept, like we used to have like the Google Assistant, and there was like Siri, there was like Alexa, and I remember when we launched these assistants, we were actually very excited about like, oh no, everyone in the world is going to have an assistant that can help them do whatever they want. That's kind of the idea of what we have is AI, right? Like we want to have like this technology that can, help us for a bit everything we want in our life, right? And even like do things on our behalf. So this idea, these visions, that's quite a long time that it exists. But now with AI and how we progress, with AI, we have way more capabilities. Now the AI is actually able to do much more than before. Is able to understand much more about like who you are as a person, the world around you, make sense of it, and help you, take actions across a broader range of topics. And the AI, is still progressing, which I think is fascinating because. At first, the AI is, good at understanding text, generating text, but now the AI is very multimodal, can understand like the combination of images, sound, text. And then there is like AI going more and more into the real world with like having the understanding of the physical capabilities of the world. And then you can imagine like, oh, what if we, use this AI into robots, the possibilities others are really like infinite. So like we really much have an inflection point in terms of technology, and I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, it is indeed. And that's why I think that tech founders such as yourself that are part of that innovation, part of that revolution in all different types of industries, I think it's so cool because not only are you building a business, which is something that we all are working on in our own various ways, but you're also leveraging and keeping up with a technology that changes every single week. So you've got to talk to us about what you're building with Lemon, the AI for your health. Introduce listeners to what is Lemon, and obviously you're leveraging a lot of really cool tech and AI behind it. So Deniz, what does that look like for Lemon to actually impact our lives?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you like how I came up with the idea about Lemon, and I also want to maybe like extend a bit about like why I work on what I'm working. Throughout my career, I always thought it was very important to work on like things that excite you, and for me, things that excite me, are things that positive for the world. When I joined Google first time, I was like, oh, I'm not going to go in ads. I work on like search, voice search, and then the Google Assistant, which help people do things faster, which is like a really net positive for the world. And then I launched it. I took a break from Google. I bootstrapped a company. Actually, there was a marketplace that was helping people connecting to into real life, which also I thought like super cool. Is helping as we get more and more into a society that is very individualistic. How do we help people reconnect together? So I was doing something in that space, and I was super excited about that. Later on, when I rejoined Google, I was like, okay, I had this opportunity to work on a health team, and I was like, oh, I can work on a health team. This is like helping people, like living healthier, longer. It's a very positive mission. So I got super excited about that, and. On that team, we did quite a lot of studies to understand the users, and I'm going to probably talk a bit more about that, like the studies that we made and the insight that we got, because that's really much at the origin of Lemon Health. And then after that, also launching Gemini, which really helped people in a bunch of ways, which I think is also positive. So when I wanted to launch this startup Lemon, the reason why I launched it is really much because this is an idea that I truly believe is positive for the world, is going to help people live healthier, and that's going to motivate me for the long term. So the insight that we started with, is when we ask users, especially consumers of health product. And when you ask them, what is your number one need? They don't tell you, oh, my number one need is to see how many steps I've done today. They don't tell you, oh, my number one need is to see yet another biomarker and to see how it's evolving. They tell us like, oh, my number one need is help me actually take actions for my health, right? Everyone wants to be healthier, but many people have trouble to follow through. And so they want help on how to actually taking action, not just telling them, oh, you need to do that, or here's yet another insight. So that's these realizations is like all of the startups out there, all of the players out there, they're selling you a kind of a physical device that show you some metrics. So they very much focus on this insight layer. And I was like, cool, more insight for user, okay, it's not so bad. But how do you help them take actions, right? Who is like actually helping people taking actions, not just telling them like more insight about themselves. And I didn't see any big solutions out there. So I was like, okay, I got to do something. I got to help people select what to eat, order what to eat, help them book their checkup appointment, help them like reserve a class that might make sense for them, that might be a wellness class, that help people discover videos that might be good to follow through as exercise and then help them play them. This is this kind of actions I'm talking about, and that's what Lemon is about. It's an AI health companion that continuously monitors your world, and based on everything it knows about you, is recommend you what action to take. It doesn't only recommend you what action to take, it also reduces the barrier for you to take these actions by, just one click, order the healthy food for you. One click, order that wellness class that is adapted for you, and so on.
I really appreciate that overview, especially because to me, what it really reminds me of is that Henry Ford quote that we've all heard about when Henry Ford talked about understanding your customer. But I love the quote that he came up with, which is, if I would have asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And of course, Henry Ford, understanding what people actually want as the innovator, as the problem solver, as the executive, the CEO and the founder of Ford Motor Company, he said, hey, we're not just going to come up with a faster horse. We're going to innovate and we're going to launch a car. And that totally transformed. And oftentimes as consumers, it's really funny. Here I am wearing my Apple Watch as I'm talking to you. And I think to myself, yeah, I feel like I get these insights from Apple, but none of it's actionable. Like, to me, it's just a cool visual display of what I'm doing on a daily basis. You're obviously taking your customer insights, but you are coming up with a solution that actually delivers what we actually want. Talk to us about that balance, because I feel like you are taking into account both sides of the equation, but ultimately you're the problem solver here.
Yeah, I think it always starts with like understanding users. And I like the quote that you mentioned about Henry Ford, because what you want to understand about users is not like the solutions they believe that they need. It's very much understanding the key motivation. What are they really after? What are they trying to accomplish? And then you come up with the solutions for that, instead of just asking them, oh, what do you think you need? So this is why like understanding the consumers is very important. And especially I would say, when you create a product for consumers, it's very different than when you create a product for like B2B. In B2B is almost, the execution might be, it's a bit different. It's a bit easier from my point of view, but people might disagree with that. But, you go to a business and you just analyze the pain point, and then they are going to tell you the solution that they need, and then they are going to be ready to pay for it, and then you just execute through that. But when you go for consumers, they have problems, but they're not very good at expressing like what are the exact problems, and you really need to dive into the psychology or what they were trying to achieve, what do they actually mean, and there's such a wide range of people out there that are very different, right? So how do you build something that is going to touch like millions and millions of people? You kind of sometimes have to take the average out, like all of these different users, and find like what is the commonality across everyone that is true, that they have as a problem. So really like this psychological aspect of understanding consumers, I think is very passionate on my side.
Yeah, I want to ask you this question. It's a bit philosophical. I don't know how to express this question perfectly, but I'll share a thought that I recently had. So listeners know, earlier this year, I launched a nonprofit, and it's called Through Entrepreneurship, because I very much believe that all the best things in life and in society and in culture happen through entrepreneurship. And Deniz, there was a point where I kind of felt a little analysis paralysis, where I actually felt, and I often preach about the fact that we need to think big. And so with the nonprofit, I have all these goals. I want to help any kid in the world who dreams of being an entrepreneur. I want to help him or her become an entrepreneur. And I didn't have access to entrepreneurs when I was a kid. I wish I was exposed to it so much younger. And so these are the problems that we want to solve with the nonprofit. However, there's not much I can do with that. I sat down, I actively did this exercise where I said, I'm going to ask myself smaller questions intentionally, because if there are smaller answers, I can take action on that. I can start a high school program where we go into high schools and help students with X, Y, and Z. And so it's this really interesting balance of these massive ambitions, but also what can we take action on today? We've seen it with different tech companies in different industries. So you have lived in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the hub of innovation. A lot of people don't realize how important Carnegie Mellon is in the tech world of self-driving cars, autonomous cars were first tested in Pittsburgh. And so these tech companies realize, let's first get it right in one geographic region, then we'll start infiltrating the masses. Has that been something you've thought about in the way you work out Lemon in your mind? Because you want to help everybody, but you can only take so much action and solve some specific problems. How are you measuring and weighing and balancing all that?
No, definitely, like this is, I think, important, to have a big visions, because you want to impact as many people as possible, right? And then, at least on my side, I really like to work on this problem that potentially impact 1 billion of people. So you don't want to work on something that is, or I personally don't want to work on something that is too niche. And so, for us, like, who do we want to help? We want to help everyone who wants to be healthier, right? This is a crazy and it's a big missions, right? But then once you want to do that, it's kind of hard to help everyone who want to be healthier, because out there you have like the biohackers who are like, have some set of like requirement that is going to be very different from someone who does exercise like very inconsistently, right? And so what we decided is like, okay, sure, this is our goal, help everyone who is healthier, but what do we start with? What we start with is like, then we realize like people who need a lot of help is people who want to be healthier, but they have challenge to follow through, because on the other side, you have people who are already proactive with their health, they're already more or less healthy, right? So sure, you can help them optimize them and get further, right? But this is nice for them, but the impact is not going to be so big. But if you can help people, who want to be healthier, who want to be more proactive, but they fail to follow through. If you can help bridge that gap, the impact is huge. So this is already a narrow niche, of people out there. So then we were like, okay, but there's still within that niche, there's quite a lot of people, And then we were like, but within that niche, who is the ICP? Who is the ideal customers? That exemplify this group the best that we can start with. And then what we realize actually, parents, they have like parents, like especially like urban parents, they have a career, they in the same time they have kids, and they give up a lot of their health for the kids and to manage the career plus the kids and the family, and they want to be healthier, but they struggle to follow through. So we realized actually parents are actually an ideal source for us. So that's like, in what you were saying, sure, we have a broad vision helping everyone who wants to be healthier, but then we are starting actually with parents. That's where we start today with Lemon Health is how do we help parents being healthier than what they are.
Yeah, I love that. To me, I'm really grateful for you sharing that, because to me, that really is what, when everyone encourages us to niche down, it's kind of discouraging as an entrepreneur, because we want to help everybody, but you really use that. I wish all listeners could see us right now. I love the way you paint the visual of the Venn diagram of saying, well, there are these overlapping segments. Let's really pick one, knowing full well that the market is so much bigger than just them. And we'll get there, but we're really going to start here. And I would imagine that also plays into you as a product manager. I'm so excited to tap into your product manager mind, because I find it so fascinating how sequentially, how orderly product managers' minds work. Because again, if I was in charge of Lemon, gosh, especially with the powers of AI, I would want to build in all the features on day one. But of course, that's not possible. It's also not the most practical thing to do when developing a product. So share some of that product manager mindset with us. How do you make sense of what to bake into the product in order to reach that next step that obviously you're planning long term, but what are the short term steps to get there?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of like I would say maybe like technique you can take into account. First, it started very much with insight out of like making user interviews. When I was like working with Fitbit and leading a health team at Google, like we interview hundreds and hundreds of users to understand like what are their core needs. Right, and then out of the core needs, then you can come up with ideas. So I think this is the first tool to build in the right directions. Talk to users. What do people need? Don't just like try to guess. That's the number one step. The other step that we also looked at is data. At Google, we had a lot of data, so that could shape a lot of my understanding of the space, which is good. But also, like as we create a prototype and then we're launching like a beta version of a product, we are putting all of the logging into place to really understand how the user interact with what, and that also guide our decisions. And also, before going too far into launching your product, before validating, we actually validating a smaller prototype, a smaller concept that is not fleshed out. So in our case, like we didn't like launch an app on the app stores that has all of the functionality. What we did is we started with a very crappy prototype that we just did over 1 week. My co-founder and I, we just like vibe coded for a week, and then we did a prototype where we will add actionable recommendation in people's calendar. So everyone has a calendar, and to use this prototype, you didn't need to install a product, right? You didn't have to download something on the App Store, right? All you had to do is like sign up, and then on a web page, and then all of a sudden you start to get like actionable recommendations on your calendar. Right, so the distributions was very easy, and very quickly we could ask like 20 friends, like, hey, try this product. What do you think about it? What's your feedback? What's the nature of the recommendation you're getting? How do you like them? Does it need to be more actionable? How can it be more actionable? What would you like to change into the title? What would you like to change inside the descriptions, and so on? So we were able to collect a lot of feedback in a short time. So like this idea, I think is generally the best one. Don't work like months and months without shipping anything, without showing anything to anyone, because you are not going to learn about the feedback. Always try to find what is the easier things you can do to collect the feedback that you want to have.
Yeah, I love that. Especially knowing, I'll reveal this a little bit for our listeners, is that listeners know we always ask our guests a few questions before we get on the air together. And I love one of these things that you had shared with me before we hit record today about the fact that, Deniz, you always come up with crazy ideas. You are clearly an idea factory. It's so evident even hearing your energy here today. And so I've got to ask you, because having ideas is super valuable and it definitely has time and a place, but you also combine that, and huge kudos to you. You also somehow find that focus to say, hey, I have a lot of ideas, but I'm also going to entertain this. And you talk about shipping an MVP. That's something that you didn't let ideas hamper you there. You didn't wait for the perfect product. You said, let's get that real life customer feedback. How do you fight the urge to entertain at depth all of the crazy ideas that you come up with?
Yeah, it's very true that actually I come up with a lot of ideas. I'm a very much of a like idea person, I used to have like, a list of startup ideas, and you call me crazy, but I would come up with 2 or 3 startup ideas a day and consistently, and after a month, I will have like, 100 plus like ideas on my list. So I was doing that during university, and, more you come up with idea, more easy it is to come up with ideas. So I really encourage everyone to kind of practice that at some point in their life. And like this, you're right, like there's so much ideas of things we can do, yet we have to focus. But like in a startup, you have to also be pragmatic. It's like the resources that you have is not infinite. The time that you have is not infinite, right? And if you stay too long into the idea phase, and you don't plunge very quickly into the practical aspect, then you might just waste your resources, waste your time, and then if you don't make progress, then you give up, or then you run out of resources, and then it's very challenging to continue, right? So focusing on something small, help you to make progress on something small, and therefore you see the progress, and then you get into the right dynamic, and then it's easier to go on, and yeah, if you don't focus, it's very hard to make practical progress on anything. So this is what I keep reminding myself, hey Denise, you don't have infinite resources, you don't have infinite time, you do need to make progress, so let's focus and make progress on something focused. Is better than boiling the ocean, right?
Yes, so well said. And I'm really excited to ask you this next question, because I know that the fact that you are an ex-Googler and you've been involved at behind the scenes level of Gemini, of Google Assistant, of so many cool projects there, I'm going to put you on the spot to take us behind the scenes. What is your personal usage of AI look like behind the scenes, both business-wise, but also in your day-to-day life? Because clearly with Lemon, you're showing that there's so many valuable benefits we can all take in our personal lives as well. So how do you personally leverage AI on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, I use AI a lot. I use AI a lot. Like I probably have like 20 prompts, let's say, per day of AI, right? And it really ranges across all kind of like on the personal life, like I have a friend who already have everything. Like what kind of gift idea to give to that friend who already has everything, right? That was like a prompt I made just yesterday. I also I ask AI things I should not ask AI, like, hey, do I need a visa for this country? Yes or no? And then I just choose the answers, hoping it's not hallucinating, right? On the personal side, I use it quite a lot. On the professional side, I use it also quite a lot, for summarizing all my user interviews, to automatically share these user interviews with the team automatically, such that I don't have to even like spend time to copy paste things, to brainstorm ideas about the product, to also organize all of the customer interviews I've done. And throughout time, you get to have hundreds of customers interviews, and how do you like organize all of these thoughts into something like you can share with the team, and that's more easy to execute on. I think, and plus all our product is big in AI. Like our product has like a bunch of agents running continuously in order to come up with the right recommendation. So we also use AI a lot for our own startup, and also the obvious one like coding and vibe coding. There are probably other use cases, but as you can see, it's pretty wide, right? And I think that's what is like quite magical with AI. Is like almost anything, at least today, that is digital could benefit from AI to speed up, to help you speed up in some ways.
Yeah, I love that. No shortage of use cases there. And you're right. The depth and breadth that we can leverage from AI is incredibly powerful. So really cool hearing the insights and seeing the way that you light up there. I've got to ask you this. I knew that time would run very quickly with you here today, but I want to squeeze in two final questions. The first one is obviously being a technical founder and launching a tech company as well. That's something that you think a lot about the product itself, but distribution is so key, and hearing how ambitious you are and how hungry you are to serve the people that you want to make a positive difference in their lives. What does the distribution side of your roadmap look like? What are your thoughts? What's that roadmap as we enter a new year? How are you thinking about the distribution of Lemon?
Well, the way I see it is like, for a company like us that's aiming to help people be healthier, like the number of opportunities out there is huge, right? You can go directly to consumers and help consumers. I do have like a B2B company reaching out to us because they want to use our APIs, because they like the capabilities of what we have. You can also go in the medical world, right? You can help people, let's say, that have like medical like conditions, let's say you have diabetes, pre-diabetes. You need to improve your lifestyle. You need to live healthier, right? You could also like target these people and have them be healthier, right? So there's a lot of opportunities out there. And I think like the key challenges is like, how do you focus? Like we were mentioning earlier, in order to make like a progress. And the way I think about distributions, right, is in a consumer product is at first you need to nail retention. Because otherwise, like, it's easy to put the accelerator on distribution, have more people coming on top of the funnel. But then if you lose them, it's kind of a leaky bucket, and then it's going to be very expensive and a lot of effort in order to have more people coming on top of your funnel. If you keep losing a lot of percentage of your users. So the key part, is first make a product that is valuable, that has retention, that people love. And then once people love this product, it's going to be much easier to distribute it, because on one side, people are going to speak about your product to their friends and colleagues because they like your product, right? And on top of that, it also means that you know what is the right value propositions for the users, because now they're sticky, and therefore you have the right messaging for marketing and distribution, and everything gets much easier. So at first, create a product that 10 people love. And then once you find a product that 10 people love, then find 100 people that is going to love this product, and then think about scale. But at the very starting phase, it's not much of a game of scale. It's very much of a game of finding 10 super happy users, finding 100 super happy users.
Yes, I love that perspective, and I really appreciate that blend of both strategic but also tactical. This is something we can all take inside of our own businesses, whether we're B2C or B2B. I think that these are universal truths that absolutely apply. So I don't know how you're going to top that for the answer to my final question, though, because I always ask this at the end of every episode. It's super broad. You can take it in any direction you want, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and as a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing that you want to leave them with today?
As cheesy as it sounds, just follow your dream. If you follow your dream, you do have more motivation for what you do. You only have one life, and then you're going to persevere more. And perseverance is super important when you want to create something, because it does take time to create anything. Nothing comes from one day to the next one become a huge success. Everything takes time, and you have a lot of difficulties that you have to go through, right? And you have a lot of adversities. So having the motivation to go that and doing, working through these difficulties for something that you really enjoy, that's something that you dream of, is very valuable, So this would be my advice to everyone: follow your dream.
Yes, very valuable advice. And I'll tell you what, Deniz, coming from one of Switzerland's finest cheese regions, we'll absolutely take cheesy advice from you. We'll definitely take that, because it's a constant reminder. And I think we all need to be reminded of that from time to time, especially in those low moments, which are inevitable. We're all going to face them, not just once, not just at the beginning, constantly throughout our entrepreneurial journey. So really valuable advice. I'm also excited for people to check out all the great things that you're doing with Lemon, because like we talked about, this is not theory. You are not wasting time in solving these problems. You already have the beta version of Lemon is out there. It's ready to be downloaded on our mobile devices. So for listeners who want to find out more about Lemon and all the cool stuff that you're up to, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Go to lemonhealth.ai. We'll be happy to have you there.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping that link down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We're also linking to Deniz's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to him, continue the conversation, talk about partnerships, talk about getting them into your company. You've heard that there's so many opportunities to make a positive difference in all of our lives, especially when it comes to our health. So really cool technology there. Otherwise, Deniz, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.